All right, so this is where your training begins. I'll be your instructor throughout the program, and we'll be here to help you every step of the way. You may already have some experience driving, or this may be your first time. Either way, I think you'll learn a few things before we're done. We'll start on this test track and practice some basic skills before we get on the road. Start by looking around your vehicle. Notice the other vehicles around you. It looks like you can see everything, but there are places around your vehicle you just can't see from the driver's seat. These are often called blind spots, and it's one reason why a car has mirrors. If you set them correctly, you can eliminate many of those blind spots. Here, I'll show you. So you start by setting the rear view mirror so you can see as much of the rear window as possible. It should look something like this. Then set the side mirrors as far out as you can, but where you can still see the side of your car, like this. Notice the life bar above. This is how you can keep track of your score during each lesson. Your score will decrease for each infraction, but will also recover as you drive along without making mistakes. Your life will completely deplete and the lesson will end for any reckless behavior like getting into a crash, driving off-road, or excessive speeding. In every lesson, you'll be required to put on your seatbelt before starting your vehicle. Click on your seatbelt. Okay, now start your vehicle. Place the vehicle in drive. Drive up to each stop sign and come to a complete stop before moving forward. You don't get credit for stopping unless you stop completely. All right, now let's practice steering. Follow the path around these barriers and, try not to hit anything. See, you're already a pro. Try using your turn signal before taking a left. Your turn signal will automatically shut off when you straighten out the wheel. We'll go over the use of turn signals in more detail in a later lesson. You can take a right and continue with the tutorial, or take a left and return to the parking lot. Notice you're not allowed to go straight. Do not enter signs are common, so keep an eye out or you may end up driving into oncoming traffic, which can be embarrassing, never mind dangerous. Try some parallel parking. Many people are uncomfortable with parallel parking and it can be tricky, but I'll show you how to do it perfectly every time with 3 easy steps. Okay, step 1, pull up alongside the car in front of the space where you want to park. There are markings on the pavement so you know where to stop. Step 2, put the car in reverse. This overhead view should help. Turn the wheel to the right and point the rear of your car into the space. Step 3, continue backing. When your front bumper clears the other car, turn the wheel back to the left and continue moving back until your entire car is in the space. Check the overhead view to see if you've pulled all the way in. And if you find yourself not lining up, just pull back out and start over. Don't force it. It's better to try a few times than to risk hitting another vehicle. When you're done practicing and ready to leave, simply turn the wheel to the left and pull out the same way you came in. Normal parking spaces are much easier, but choosing the right one is more important than you might think. When selecting a spot, check the space for other objects. Steer clear of any tight spaces, and try not to park in a space next to a light pole or other objects which might. Go ahead and pull all the way through and shut down your car by putting the car in park and turning off the ignition. Okay, I think you're ready for the next lesson. You can run through the course again on your own or escape out to go back to the main menu. Okay, so you've learned some of the basics and become more familiar with your vehicle. Now for the most important lesson. It's a simple rule. Don't hit anything or anyone with your car. Might sound obvious, but think about it. If you can avoid hitting other objects and keep them from hitting you, you have all but eliminated being involved in a crash. Let me show you what I mean. Start your vehicle and take a right out of this parking lot. You may have heard other drivers who have been in a crash say, I didn't see it coming. Exactly, they didn't see it. That's why they got hit. The best way to see it coming is to constantly scan your surroundings. Scanning doesn't just mean looking around. It means searching for hazards in situations that could lead to a crash. It sounds simple, but there are some really effective ways of doing it. When scanning, follow this pattern. Look in front of you for things you have to react to immediately. Then further down the road for any upcoming hazards. Look to your left, also checking your left mirror. Then to your right. Finally, check your rear view mirror for any vehicles that might be coming up behind you. Okay, let's keep going. Scanning should be done continuously. You still focus most of your attention straight ahead, but rotate through all other areas every few seconds. You may need to think about scanning at first consciously, but after a while, it'll simply become a habit. Stop here, I want to show you something. Not all hazards are readily visible, but just because you can't see them, of course, doesn't mean they're not hazards or won't become one. Hazards can be blocked by other vehicles, sharp turns, even road signs. For instance, that bus to the right might be blocking a number of pedestrians. The truck to the left is hiding an emergency vehicle. And small objects like motorcycles and bicycles are easily hidden. Okay, let's keep going. As you become more experienced, you'll get better at identifying these hidden hazards. Okay, now that you know how to search for hazards, there's a technique that'll allow you to go one step further and actually predict hazards before they occur. Some objects might not look like hazards, but might display clues that they're about to become one. If you look carefully, you can spot some of these clues. Look ahead to your right. Notice the SUV with its wheels turned down and brake lights on. This may be an indication that the car is about to pull out. You can see that there's a driver in this truck, which means the door might open at any time. Just in case, you want to slow down and move slightly to the left. In some areas, you wouldn't expect to see a pedestrian, but the presence of a bus, emergency vehicle, or delivery vehicle might mean there's a pedestrian in the area and perhaps on the road. More often, pedestrians are being struck and killed because they were distracted. Right? Just like distracted drivers, pedestrians can be distracted by cell phones, texting, or reading. You should look at their behavior for clues about their awareness. There's another tool that's often overlooked, your hearing. You'll be surprised how much you rely on your hearing to know what's going on around you. For instance, you can often hear a car coming up beside you before you see it, or the sound of an emergency vehicle approaching in the distance. Take advantage of all your senses. This street, for instance, is full of hazards you may hear long before you see. Go ahead and pull over in front of any of these houses. Then shut down your car. Continue using these scanning techniques throughout this course. Use both your eyes and your ears to help identify hazards. So you've learned how to identify hazards, some obvious, some not so obvious. You've even learned the first step towards anticipating hazards. But what happens when things don't go as planned? How can you prepare yourself for the unexpected? Well, let's get out of here and I'll show you. Take a left out of this exit. Stop here and look left before pulling out. Okay, you're clear to go because this car is turning into the gas station, right? Well, what if he doesn't turn and you decide to pull out? As I said, things don't always go as planned, and other drivers don't always make good decisions or obey traffic laws. Now it's safe to pull out. One way to prepare for the unexpected is to use a technique called what if. It means as you drive, constantly ask yourself, what if? For instance, what if this car on the left decides to pull out in front of us? What if this car decides to stop suddenly because the light turned yellow? What if this car pulls out in front of you? What if the kid decides to run across the street? Stuff like this happens all the time. Okay, here's a math quiz. If you're traveling at the posted speed limit, how close will you get to the kid before coming to a stop? The answer? You won't even have your foot on the brake when you hit him. Well, even if you were paying full attention to the road, it takes several seconds to recognize what's going on, determine if it's a hazard, decide on the appropriate response, and to move your foot from the accelerator to the brake. So, how do you give yourself more time to react? The obvious would be to stay alert and drive slower in busier areas, but there's another technique that can reduce your reaction time. It's called covering the brake. Here's how it works. When you approach a busy area, instead of keeping your foot over the gas, rest your foot gently on the brake pedal, but do not depress it. You're not actually slowing down, but you're ready to at any moment. This technique can give you a few moments more to react to a situation should it occur. Try it yourself, scan for hazards, and ask yourself, what if? Then cover the brake when appropriate. See how quickly you can respond to any situation. Okay, I think you got it. Pull over by any of these houses and shut down your vehicle. At first, you might have to make a conscious effort to think, what if? But as you get a little more experience, it'll happen more naturally. You'll have the chance to experience many types of intersections, each with their own set of rules. Let's start with the most common, the four-way stop. At these intersections, every vehicle has a stop sign. The question is, how do you know who gets to go first? The rule is simple. The first one to arrive gets to go first, then the second, then the third. It's important then to pay attention to the order in which the vehicles arrive and come to a stop. Looks like you're number 4. Let's get back in the car. When it's your turn to go, drive straight through the intersection. If you're ever unsure whose turn it is, it's safer and more courteous to let the other driver go first. Try to make eye contact with the other driver and use a hand gesture if possible. Then proceed slowly in case there was any miscommunication. Try this on your own. Pay attention to the order in which the other vehicles arrive and proceed through the intersection when it's your turn. Okay, here's another intersection with very different rules. Notice the other vehicles don't have a stop, only you. In this case, you have to decide when it's safe to pull out. Make sure you use your turn signal to let other drivers know where you're headed. A very common crash occurs when you assume the vehicle in front of you has pulled out and you are still looking to the left. Signal lights are in a way easier because you have a light that tells you when to go. At many intersections, you can take a right when the signal light is still red. But whether the signal light is red or green, you should look both ways several times before pulling into the intersection. Remember, other drivers don't always obey traffic laws. It's good to leave at least one car length between you and the vehicle in front of you. That gives you room to move around the car if you have to. When the light turns green, you may be ready to take off, but it's safer to wait a few seconds before moving forward. You don't want to be the first one in the intersection if you can help it, because all it takes is for someone to try and beat the light and... Let's clear up this mess. Okay, let's keep going. Taking a left across traffic is tricky as you're intentionally crossing in front of other vehicles. Make sure oncoming traffic is going to stop before proceeding through the intersection, even if you have a green arrow. Roundabouts are unique intersections. They're designed so you don't have to stop, but you do have to yield to oncoming traffic, as those vehicles already in the roundabout have the right of way. Merge in when it's safe, and look for your exit. Not all intersections have signal lights or stop signs. For instance, this highway with its on-ramps and off-ramps is just like an intersection where other vehicles will be crossing your path or pulling into your lane. Just note you may need to stop for other vehicles even if you have the right-of-way. So depending on where you live, railroad crossings may be rare, but you must know what to do and what not to do. The most important thing is to take warning lights seriously. Even if you don't see a train, don't go around the gates or cross the tracks if the lights are flashing. Don't try to beat the train. Trains are moving way faster than they look, and they can't stop in time. And when it comes to a crash between you and a train, the train always wins. Wait until the gates are fully up and all warning lights stop before you cross. Even then, it's good to look both ways before crossing. Don't rely solely on the signal lights. Whatever you do, don't stop on the tracks, even if a train is not coming. If a car is in front of you, it's better to wait till he's out of the way so you don't get trapped if they suddenly stop. Pull over here and shut down the car. I know that it was a lot to learn, but you'll have more time to practice intersections. Bottom line, use caution at all intersections, look both ways, and use your turn signals. And don't assume other drivers will always obey the rules. So maintaining an adequate following distance is one of the most overlooked safe driving practices. The recommended following distance between you and the vehicle in front of you is 4 to 6 seconds, and that's in good weather. Add in wet roads, poor visibility, and other factors, and that recommended following distance can go up to 8 to 10 seconds. If that seems like a long way back, it is. Or at least it'll look like it is. Yeah, sure, you can tailgate someone, and as long as traffic keeps moving, no problem, but things can change suddenly. As I mentioned before, it takes longer to stop a vehicle than you might think. It takes approximately 1.5 seconds to recognize a hazard and begin pressing the brake. That's because in any given situation, the driver must first see the hazard, second, identify it as a risk, third, decide if braking is the correct response, and then finally move the foot from the gas to the brake. The 1.5 second response time assumes you are paying full attention to the road and not distracted, which can add several seconds to your response time. Keep this in mind, this is not how long it takes your vehicle to come to a stop. It's how long it takes before your foot touches the brake and the vehicle only begins to slow down. If you don't leave enough distance, you're actually in danger of being hit twice. Whether you hit the car in front of you or not, by stopping short, you're now in danger of being hit from behind. Leaving enough space for you to slow down also leaves enough time for the vehicle behind you to stop. Okay, now it's your turn. Let's get on the highway and practice maintaining a 4-second following distance. This might help until you get a feel for what 4 seconds looks like. If you find yourself too close to the vehicle in front of you, just back off slowly. Although you're doing your best to maintain a proper following distance, you won't always be able to control your distance, as other vehicles may merge in and out of your lane. What's important is that you're aware of your distance, and you're continuously and safely making adjustments to your speed. What you don't want to do is make abrupt changes in speed or drive too far below the posted speed limit. Alright, now try it without the graphic. So now, how do you know if you're maintaining a 4-second following distance? Well, one trick is to use roadside objects, such as a road sign, guardrail, or these black and yellow markers on the left. So find some marker well ahead of you. When you see the vehicle in front of you pass that marker, begin counting, and continue counting until your vehicle passes the same marker. This is a good estimate of how far you are from the vehicle in front of you. Go ahead and try it. Look at the vehicle in front of you. Wait until it passes some marker you choose, then count 1, 2, 3, 4, and stop counting when your car passes the same marker. If you're too close, adjust your distance, choose another marker, and then count again. You won't need to use this technique all the time, just when you need to check if you're far enough back. Also, this technique can be very useful, but don't ignore the other vehicles around you. Maintaining a proper following distance is just as important on surface streets as it is on the highway. You may be traveling at slower speeds, but you still need to maintain enough distance, as other vehicles are stopping and turning more often. I'll turn the graphic back on. Go ahead and pull into any of these parking spots and shut down the car. So, maintaining space around your vehicle is closely related to maintaining a proper following distance, but in this case, it means maintaining space all around your vehicle, not just in front of you. For this lesson, I'll provide a graphic that will warn you when other vehicles are nearby. Alright, start your vehicle and pull out onto the road. Make sure to check your mirrors and use your turn signal before pulling out. In the previous lesson, you learned the importance of leaving enough space between you and the vehicle in front of you in case you have to stop suddenly. But coming to a stop may not always be the appropriate response. If the appropriate response is to steer around the vehicle, you'll need to make sure there's a safe space to move into, such as an adjacent lane. So how do you know if there's a safe space to move into? Well, the same method you use for identifying hazards, you'll also use to identify safe spaces. Use your scanning techniques, especially checking your mirrors, to identify spaces around your vehicle that are clear of traffic. Look left and right often to check if there's a car beside you, and position your vehicle so that those spaces remain clear. Don't weave in and out of traffic, just make subtle adjustments to your speed. Remember, you can't control the behavior of other drivers, but you can do your best to keep things clear around you and at least know when they're not. Oh, hey, where are you going? On the highway, it's the same thing. There's no telling when you might have to change lanes quickly, so make sure you always have a clear space around you. Okay, go ahead and pull into this gas station. Shut down your vehicle when you find a good place to park. So far, you've done a good job driving with normal traffic, but let's talk about some specialty vehicles you may encounter. So there are certain types of vehicles you'll want to pay special attention to, such as bicycles, motorcycles, emergency vehicles, and buses, each with their own set of behaviors. Bicycles and motorcycles are unique vehicles. Not only are they more vulnerable in a crash, but because of their smaller size, they can be difficult to spot. A bicycle or motorcycle can readily be hidden by another car. They also more easily fit into your blind spots. And even when you can see them, it may be difficult to determine their speed or predict their actions because they're capable of different maneuvers than other vehicles. There are specialty vehicles, such as buses and taxis, which make frequent stops and return to the road regularly. There are specific laws regarding some specialty vehicles, like with school buses, for instance. You are required to stop when its lights are flashing, and you cannot continue until the bus's stop sign is retracted and the lights are turned off. You may continue once the bus shuts off its lights, but still keep an eye out for children. Even if a bus is coming the other way, you're still required to stop until its lights stop flashing. Postal vehicles have a special purpose that requires them to make frequent stops and drive outside the flow of traffic. In addition, postal workers often have to exit their vehicle, so when approaching a postal vehicle, keep an eye out for the driver as well as the movement of the vehicle. Give them plenty of room by slowing down and moving over as far as possible. Always keep an ear out for sirens. You'll most likely hear an emergency vehicle long before you see it. And there's specific laws regarding emergency vehicles. You're required to pull over as far as possible, even if the emergency vehicle is traveling in the opposite direction. If the emergency vehicle is coming up from behind you, don't panic. Simply find a safe place to pull over as quickly as possible, and keep in mind, other vehicles will be trying to do the same thing. Trucks offer a special challenge. They're big, so they're easy to spot, but in turn, their size makes it difficult for them to see you. Trucks have blind spots, some of which are large enough to completely hide your vehicle from the driver's view. Take a look at the graphic. These blind spots are often referred to as no zones because they're areas you want to avoid. There are times, of course, when you need to enter a no zone in order to pass. When you do, spend as little time there as possible. Try passing these trucks. Pass through the no zone quickly, but without speeding. exit here. Especially in cities, you'll often find delivery trucks double parked. There are no special rules regarding delivery trucks, but be aware of pedestrians walking around them and check your mirrors before changing lanes. All right, pull over here and shut down your vehicle. Pull over as soon as you can. Remember to follow the specific laws regarding emergency vehicles and school buses. For all other special vehicles, be aware of the way they move and the best way to act around them. Okay, so far we've had good weather, but it won't always be like that. Depending on where you live, you may experience a variety of weather and road conditions. Let's head out of this parking lot and I'll share some tips on what to do when you experience different weather conditions. Probably the most common weather you'll run into is rain. Everything from a light rain to a heavy downpour. Alright, so the first thing you want to do when it starts to rain is put on your wipers. But you'll also want to turn on your headlights for better visibility, even if it's still daylight. Like a lot of new cars, this one has daytime running lights and auto-sensing wipers, so they'll come on automatically. If your own car doesn't, you'll have to turn them on yourself as soon as you see it start to rain. Rain not only makes it harder to see, but also affects the traction of your tires. This means you won't be able to stop, right, or make turns as quickly. When it rains, slow down and give yourself a little space around your vehicle. Even after it stops raining, there's still water on the road, sometimes a lot, which means you can still hydroplane. Hydroplaning is when water gets under your tires and actually lifts your vehicle off the road. Your tires are no longer touching the ground, so you can't steer at all, which, trust me, is a bad thing. If you find yourself hydroplaning, don't panic and don't hit the brakes. Simply ease off the accelerator and keep your car pointed in a safe direction. As you start to slow, the car will return to the road surface and you'll regain control. The lesson is, if the road is wet, slow down. The faster you go, the more likely you'll hydroplane. Another common weather hazard is fog. Fog can severely limit your visibility, or when it's really foggy, can completely blind you. As soon as you see fog, turn on your headlights. This will not only help you see, but will also help others see you. Many cars come with fog lights, which you should also turn on. So what about your high beams? It seems like they would light up the road even more. But strangely enough, the opposite is true. High beams reflect off of the fog and actually make it more difficult to see. Another trick is to follow the white lines on the side of the road as well as the lights of the vehicle ahead to help guide you. Keep an eye out for brake lights, because sometimes drivers panic when they can't see and stop abruptly. Obviously, snow and ice are very slippery. You'll have to be careful when braking, but also when accelerating. Do either of those too fast and you can find yourself off the road. Slow down well before any corners. Better to hit the brakes while you're still traveling straight than when you're in a turn. If you do find yourself in a skid, keep the wheel pointed in the direction you want to go and stay off the accelerator. If you have ABS brakes, it's okay to use them, but if you don't, brake gently enough to avoid skidding. So anytime the temperature reaches near freezing, there's the potential for black ice. What makes it so dangerous is black ice is practically invisible as it takes on the color of the road surface. If you can't see it, you at least have to anticipate it. Black ice is more common on bridges, highway underpasses, or shaded areas. If the surface of the road was wet before the temperature dropped below freezing, then there's a good chance there's black ice. Cross here onto the dirt road. Like snow and rain, dirt and loose gravel can diminish the traction of your tires. This will make it more difficult to maintain control of your vehicle and will increase the chances that your vehicle could skid off the road. If your vehicle happens to have four-wheel drive, it will help, but it can't fully make up for the lack of traction. Because your tires don't have the same grip as they do on the pavement, it will take longer to stop. So you'll need to drive slower and avoid harsh braking or acceleration. You want to stay near the center of the road, as loose gravel tends to gather on the edges. If you're following another vehicle, stay back. On dirt roads, other vehicles will kick up dust that may impair your vision, or rocks that can damage your windshield. Continue practicing these techniques until you reach the end of the road. You can get more practice by selecting the off-road section of the free drive lesson. Stop here and shut down your car. As you can see, there's a wide range of weather and road conditions. What most of them have in common is reduced visibility and reduced traction. Your goal is to maintain control of your vehicle at all times by slowing down to an appropriate speed and avoid making any aggressive moves. All right, if there's one thing that will ruin everything you've learned, it's driving distracted. It doesn't matter how safe a driver you are. If you're not paying attention to the road, you might as well be driving blind. Let's take a drive, and I'll show you. Look, it's easy to become distracted while driving. There's this expectation that you'll respond immediately to any incoming text or call, even if you're driving. But you have to learn to resist that urge because the consequences are too great. So why is driving distracted so dangerous? Well, when responding to a text, you may not think you look away that long, but a few seconds is a long time when driving. Lots of things can and do change. And if something does happen when you're not looking, you won't even see it coming. You want to know what it's like to try to drive while looking away? Let me show you. Unnerving, huh? Even when you do look back at the road, it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust and figure out what's been going on. So for demonstration purposes, I'll allow you to become distracted by using the phone. Oh, and by the way, never try this in a real vehicle. Notice how difficult it is to practice the safe driving techniques you just learned when distracted. All right, if there's one thing that will ruin everything you've learned, it's driving distracted. It doesn't matter how safe a driver you are. If you're not paying attention to the road, you might as well be driving blind. Let's take a drive, and I'll show you. Look, it's easy to become distracted while driving. There's this expectation that you'll respond immediately to any incoming text or call, even if you're driving. But you have to learn to resist that urge because the consequences are too great. So why is driving distracted so dangerous? Well, when responding to a text, you may not think you look away that long, but a few seconds is a long time when driving. Lots of things can and do change. And if something does happen when you're not looking, you won't even see it coming. Know what it's like to try to drive while looking away? Let me show you. Unnerving, huh? Even when you do look back at the road, it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust and figure out what's been going on. So for demonstration purposes, I'll allow you to become distracted by using the phone. Oh, and by the way, never try this in a real vehicle. Notice how difficult it is to practice the safe driving techniques you just learned when distracted. I'm sure you've noticed a lot of people looking at their phones while they're walking, or even some of those videos of people running into walls, falling down, or nearly being hit by a car because they weren't looking. The videos are funny, but also scary for them and for you. Because as a driver, of course, the last thing you want to do is hit a pedestrian, even if it's not your fault. You can't control their actions, but you can control your own. I know it's tempting, but you must resist the urge to respond to incoming calls and texts. The conversation can wait. And if it can't, get off the road and find a safer place to have the conversation. Pull over here and shut down your car. Well, this is it. Time for the final drive. There's no new lesson material, just a chance for you to demonstrate all that you've learned. Here's the challenge. There are waypoints throughout the world. Find and enter each one. There's no time limit and no extra points for doing it quickly, but you will be scored as you were in other lessons. And the lesson will end when you've reached the last waypoint. Hey, good luck.